He then turns to Airy's experiment, and in what follows I would like you to listen very carefully to his line of argument.
Right, except that's absolute bullshit, because that's not what Airy sought to test at all.
So, what was he testing for?
It's abundantly clear in the paper that he set out to rigorously repeat an experiment that was first performed by a German astronomer, one Professor Ernst Klinkerfues, in an attempt to validate or falsify his hypothesis, which predicted an apparent alteration in stellar aberration when light is passed through a telescope with a significantly large objective glass, or in Airy's case, a tube full of water. So what exactly does this have to do with the ether? Well, Klinkerfues' hypothesis was developed within the framework of the undulatory light theory, and this required the existence of an ether. But the ether was already in trouble at this point.
Already in trouble? But this is in 1871, when the ether was generally accepted and no scientist doubted its existence until Einstein abolished it in 1905, some 18 years later. This is just another of his many misleading claims. But let us continue.
But if the ether drag hypothesis were correct, no stellar aberration should be detected at all, and yet by this point it was an established physical law. Nevertheless, concessions were still being made, and both Klinkerfues and Airy were fascinated in whether or not the translational motion of a medium would have any effect on the aberration of stars. If Airy failed to measure the predicted value, that would render Klinkerfues' hypothesis incorrect, right here. Let me quote it to you. Remarking that the mean results for geographical latitude of the instrument agree within a fraction of a second, I think myself justified in concluding that the hypothesis of Professor Klinkerfues is untenable. Okay, not quite the conclusion you want, is it? But then again, that's not surprising, because the conclusion you want is completely stupid.
Andromedaswake is totally wrong. It is exactly the result that supports geocentrism. Let us look at his logic. Klinkerfues was an orthodox heliocentrist, and he and everybody else expected the telescope to be tilted further, proving the Earth was doing the moving. Andromedaswake admits that Airy proved Klinkerfues wrong. So, what is the alternative? That it was the Earth that was stationary and the starlight was doing the moving, exactly as predicted in the geocentric model. Let me just stop here and ask my viewers if they accepted Andromedaswake's conclusion that it was wrong. If you did, could I point out that you have not thought carefully enough about what he has said, and blindly accepted the very authoritative claims of an evolutionist? I have been writing and lecturing against evolution since 1969, and in all that time I have never come across a single claim that seems to support evolution that cannot be completely refuted, if not by information that I have, then by a creationist expert in that field. I assure you that you can always find a huge flaw in every claim an evolutionist uses to support his case. He then rapidly leaves this subject and confuses the issue by talking about aberration and the speed of light again. As I have said, I will deal with the evidence against relativity in another video. Frankly, scientists were baffled by the Michelson-Morley result. In trying to clarify the problems, Clark said, "The problem that now faced science after Michelson-Morley null result was considerable, for there seemed to be only three alternatives. The first was that the Earth was standing still, which meant scuttling the whole Copernican theory and was unthinkable. The second was that the ether was carried along by the Earth in its passage through space, a possibility which had already been ruled out to the satisfaction of the scientific community by a number of experiments, notably those of the English astronomer James Bradley. The third solution was that the ether simply did not exist, which to many 19th century scientists was equivalent to scrapping current views of light, electricity and magnetism and starting again. Notice that the last two possibilities are quite different from the first one. The first possibility is rejected not because there was any scientific results that contradicted it. Indeed, it is the only one that fits all the results of the experiments carried out. The other two run into huge experimental problems requiring much mathematical juggling and sleight-of-hand tricks to come to their defence. The first is rejected because of the purely philosophical horror of having to accept the possibility that the Earth truly is stationary and at the centre of the rotating ether, i.e., the Earth really is at the centre of the universe. It is this model that actually has by far the best support from the scientific results we have been examining, and the most simple explanation. In all this, the Bible-believing Christians should have no difficulty in accepting this as a fact. Indeed, the Bible clearly states that the first body created was the earth, with the sun, moon and stars not created until the fourth day. They could be embedded in the super-dense ether without affecting the earth. Let me now return to a question he raised.
What does any of this have to do with evolution?
Nothing directly, but philosophically everything. Evangelical Christians have always maintained the Bible is God's word to mankind and is absolutely truthful in every subject it touches on. It always speaks of the sun doing the moving, and it also states that the earth cannot be moved. Evangelicals consider that this earth is the only place in the universe where God is playing out this cosmic drama of man's relationship with God, which I call the drama of the universe. In order to deny our special centrality in the universe, modern science claims that we are an unimportant sphere going round a normal star which is halfway along an arm of a huge galaxy, which is one of the millions in space. Thus, they seek to minimize the importance of this earth. But God's word claims that he first made the earth and then the sun, moon and stars 4 days later. All these results, the Michelson-Morley, Michelson-Gale, Sagnac, aberration and Airy's failure, are all very simply explained by accepting that we live in a geocentric universe. No abstruse mathematics are required, just simple common sense that can be understood by anyone who has just an elementary grasp of physics. But this is considered with such horror by scientists, then and now, that they are prepared to throw up a mathematical smokescreen consisting of multidimensional complex tensors in space-time and non-Euclidean geodesics. They are concepts that few understand and give results that have inherent self-contradictions that relativists refuse to acknowledge. So let me summarize again. The Sagnac experiment showed that the ether existed. The Michelson-Morley experiment showed that we were not moving through the ether. The Michelson-Gale experiment showed that the ether was travelling across the face of the earth once every 24 hours. And it was Airy's failure that showed that the earth was stationary, and it was the starlight that was moving relative to the stationary earth. I hope you found that interesting. Thank you for listening.